What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason, and we are back here for another one. I wanted to open the show and thank all 1,100 plus of you that were with me live when we made the hiring of Mike McDaniel yesterday. I appreciate everyone coming out. We crushed. I mean, my record was like 900 people live. We crushed it, over 1,100 people live yesterday. Love it, love it, love it. Thank you, everyone, for the continued support. And today we got a special one. He's back for a second time around on the channel. The big brother, the big homie, Eric Crocker, former, everyone knows the deal, former NFL, AFL DB. He now does, if you guys haven't been following him, he's now with Locked On 49ers, and he's now with Locked On Draft, taking his knowledge to the next level, man. And we were talking before we went live, man. It's only a matter of time before the 49ers come around and snag this guy. Eric, thank you so much for coming on and spending some of your afternoon, because I know it's been a crazy morning. You had your own show, then you had to go do another show with someone else. So thanks for fitting us in, man.
Oh, yeah, man. No problem, man. All good.
Man, I don't know how you're feeling, but I know 49er fans and Twitter spaces and Twitter threads yesterday, they're legitimately hurt that Mike McDaniel is no longer a part of your staff. I mean, he's pretty highly regarded around the league by players and coaches, but also by fans too. The writing I felt was kind of on the wall on Friday night when you guys hired Anthony Lynn and you brought him in as, assistant head coach and also run game coordinator, it seemed like. And I guess the natural progression is they're going to name him an OC too, maybe. Just your overall, opening up your overall thoughts and opinions on Mike McDaniel and what you've seen with him, during his time with the 49ers under Shanahan.
Yeah, well, one, he's been someone that he's been with Shanahan since like 2011 or something like that. So Shanahan's damn near like the big brother to Mike McDaniel. And, you've seen Shanahan have his little crew of guys, and they've kind of worked with him throughout this time. And definitely Mike McDaniel, he was kind of one of the last ones left. He plays a pivotal part in the run game schemes. I think Kyle Shanahan, everyone knows Kyle Shanahan for being this offensive genius. And I think a big part of it is just his run game schemes and how they do different things and how one thing looks like this, but then it's this and the different blocks and all that they like prioritize in the run game. And I think that's what makes them different. A lot of teams like, oh yeah, we want to run the ball. But I think it's the way that the 49ers scheme it up. And from everything that I hear, and you listen to former players or current 49 players, one of his former players, like Kyle Juszczyk, Mike McDaniel, he's kind of the brains behind a lot of that, where you think it's all Kyle Shanahan, but I think McDaniel might be the mastermind behind it and maybe be a bigger loss for the 49ers than I think most people expect.
Do you think the genius tag is warranted that's going around, or do you think that's something that's being thrown around too much by the media and publicly? Like I've given him, I called him a savant a couple weeks ago based off things I was just hearing from talking to people, not off what the media was saying. And then when I saw the former wide receiver from the Browns, Hawkins, come out and he labeled him a savant too, right after Breda was just praising him. Do you think that genius tag is warranted?
It might be, right? I mean, this is a guy who was like, what do you have to offer, right? This isn't a guy who's a former player or, he's like this little like scrawny guy, He doesn't really even look like a coach. But what does he have to bring to the table to where everybody just like raves about him? And I think that's what it is. There has to be some kind of geniusness in him. You know what I'm saying? So all the players, they definitely back him. They love him. I think that's one of the bigger questions, right? Like going from being an offensive coordinator who didn't even call plays for the 49ers, going from being that to like, loved and, hey, can you be a leader of men? Well, when you hear how the players talk about him, to me, and this is the first time that I've heard people really kind of speak out openly about him, it sounds like he definitely is someone who can lead an organization. He definitely sounds like that guy. He wasn't even, I don't think we ever heard him speak up until this past year once he was named offensive coordinator, right? Mm-hmm. And then you see his personality kind of shine through. And you can see how he can kind of relate to the players. But when you hear him talk away from that at like coaching clinics, they do that whole QB collective thing. Mm-hmm. Once you hear him, like, people, or you hear him talk and how he conducts himself in a room full of people, you can tell like he's a football guy. and super like just great. And I think a big part of it, I see somebody in the chat say he's the ultimate teacher. That's a huge part of it. You know, I was with Rex Ryan in 2013, and for everything everybody thinks Rex Ryan is, you know, he excelled greatly at three things. One, great leader of men, 100%. Two, master motivator. But also, maybe the more underrated one, I think Rex Ryan was a special teacher. And that might be where Mike McDaniel kind of hangs his hat.
Yeah. And that's something I've been stressing to people about this hire, because the two guys, so my top three candidates was obviously Harbaugh. I wanted Jim Caldwell. And if we were going to go inexperienced, first-time head coach, Mike McDaniel was at the top of my list. And I know we tried to bring him in as the OC for the interview for the OC last year, and Shanahan blocked it. And that's what I've been trying to tell people. Like, I think where Flores failed our offense was he didn't put good teachers in place. Like, Flores was a defensive mind as it is. He wasn't an offensive guy, right? He wasn't a both sides of the football type of guy, and he didn't put good teachers. I don't think Chan Gailey was a good teacher. I don't think Chad O'Shea was a good teacher. Jim Caldwell is one of the best teachers in the NFL, but he left after 4 months, you know what I mean, in the first year. And, you know, Godsey and Stoodsville this year, I don't think they're very good teachers. So, you know, I like the teaching aspect. You know, I agree with you. People really, really underrate that. And something I wanted to talk to you about, can you explain how you guys introduced this year, and he was really a main part of it, that inside zone toss run and the fits it caused defenses this year, and the kind of wrinkles that you can do to defenses and in your offense with those kind of looks?
Right. So I don't know the reasons behind why they do, you know, everything. I see it like y'all do, and I see different adjustments that they've made. You know, there could be a scenario where everybody started to kind of catch on to some of the things that the 49ers do. Obviously, 49ers want to do a lot of outside zone. They end up they'll do some inside trap. They do a lot of different things with their run scheme. One thing that they really started doing, especially with Deebo Samuel, they wanted to consistently get Deebo out on the edge. You know, they don't want him just taking the huge pounding in the middle, running into, you know, big defensive tackles and things like that on a consistent basis. So they were, tosses on the outside, a lot of different things to get them on the edge. And then they incorporated the kind of toss counter where they would like toss it kind of straight back. Guys would go flow that way. Then the running back, or Deebo Samuel, whatever you want to call him, he would cut it back into like an area and pick up 8-9 yards, you know? So it's just little things like that where maybe teams think of it, and maybe, you know, they do it, or maybe they don't know how to incorporate it. But I think with Mike McDaniel being kind of the leader of the run game coordinating part of the 49ers, I think he did a terrific job incorporating those type of things and being very innovative. I think when you start talking about being a genius, I think whether it's Kyle Shanahan or anyone else that he's associated with, there's a lot of innovation that goes on with that group of people.
Yeah, I agree with that. Guys, we got 360 in the chat. Smash the like button. Subscribe if you're new. On our way to 7K, only a couple hundred away. Okay, you mentioned something. You mentioned something earlier about like the leader of men, and the questions people are having about that. You know, you've heard George Kittle about him. We've all heard the rumor that George Kittle asked for an addendum in his contract, that he wanted Mike McDaniel put in his contract, that as long as he's a 49er, he wants Mike McDaniel to be a coach there. Do you think he's going to have a problem delegating, or do you think because of his style and how good of a teacher he is, he's going to be a fine delegator? Because really, when it comes to coaches and players, part of it is being a very good delegator. Do you think you don't think he's going to have a problem with that?
He's going to have to. And I've seen other people from Kyle Shanahan's coaching tree say Robert Saleh, right? Robert Saleh, you know, he was a first-time defensive coordinator with the 49ers. He, you know, does well with the Niners, heads to New York. And the first thing he does is, I think he hired Jeff Ulbrich, I want to say, to be the defensive coordinator. So he's delegating different jobs. And I think, you know, if McDaniel has learned anything from Kyle Shanahan, which I think sometimes Kyle has a little bit too much on his plate, go ahead and you utilize the guys that you have, like, and you have those guys for a reason. Use them. So I'd assume that he'd do a good job of delegating responsibility to other players and making, you know, it easier for him to be a head coach. But you never know. Sometimes, and I could see this. He seems very, very, very specific, almost like Kyle Shanahan. Kyle is very specific, and that's why sometimes he struggles to kind of play younger guys, because he wants things done a very specific way. And if McDaniel wants to coach it up that way, he might be more hands-on for the first couple years until he kind of grooms his own guy and says, all right, you take this, I'm going to do this. But yeah, I could see him learning to do that. I'm not sure if he'll do that day one.
Okay, I got a 2-part question for you. A, as a 49ers fan, what went through your mind when you saw Trent Williams motioning? 2, as a former,
like that, like who does that?
But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And 2, as a former defensive player, Eric, bro, can you explain to everyone the fits that causes a defense when they see something like that?
I'm pretty sure when the Packers saw it, and I think it was, kid from Michigan, edge rusher, great. Why am I blanking on his name right now? But they just drafted him a couple years, first round, and he set the edge pretty good. Like he wasn't in a bad position. And then you see, like, what the hell is this big person? And maybe not all tackles can do this. Maybe they can't. I don't know. But Trent Williams, he's a special athlete.
Yeah.
Like, let alone just a terrific offensive tackle. But you see that kind of pulling towards you. Rashawn Gary, there we go. Rashawn Gary out of Michigan. But you see big Trent Williams pulling towards you. You almost feel helpless. And Trent just threw his whole body into everybody and blew everything back. And that was a big third down play that the 49ers need to pick up. So, yeah, that's kind of scary. But I do think, the 49ers and McDaniel, I'm pretty sure he figured this stuff out as well. How to utilize your guys to be beneficial for you. So, like Deebo Samuel, like he is a receiver. He caught for 1,400 yards. But you know what? We can also, and they utilized him in the run game. They did those like ghost motion, high motion things and tossed the ball back to him. And he picked up big yards. He ran for 100-something yards as a rookie. But then to turn right back around and this year say, you know what? Not only are we going to utilize him on those type of things, we're going to actually line you up in, next to the quarterback, I formation. And we're going to hand the ball off to you as a true running back and figure out different ways and special ways to get you out on the edge. And again, that's another thing that I think McDaniel had a big hand in.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think it's a coincidence that Trent Williams was probably the best player in the NFL this year under Mike McDaniel in his first year as an OC? Because I think you can make the argument that Trent Williams is not only the best tackle, I think he was the best player in the NFL this year.
Yeah, that might just be Trent Williams. I mean, he's special. Obviously, he's been terrific throughout his career.
Yeah,
and being a 49er fan, I've watched a lot of
what a steal. You guys got him for nothing, bro.
Yeah. Oh. Joe Staley he's a really good football player. Like, oh man, Joe Staley, he's gonna be in the 49ers ring of honor. Then it's like, oh man, we get Trent Williams, who he's been out a year, but we'll see. All of a sudden it's like, damn, like this dude's maybe one of the best offensive players in the NFL. Just how dominant he was. He broke the PFF grading scale. He graded out like 98.4. I don't know, something crazy, to where he was like the highest graded player in like their history. So I don't know if it's McDaniel or I don't know if just Trent Williams. He's just a freak of nature, super athlete. Some of the technique that he used was a little unorthodox, at least from what I'm used to seeing. And it just, he was just like, he'd do this thing where he like pull guys down, like, and then like push them into the ground. I don't know, just some freakish stuff, man. He might have just been really good.
Okay, so let's talk about this for a second. Let's talk about Tua, because everyone's wondering about how, Tua and McDaniel are going to work. Now, say what you will, I believe Tua has a higher ceiling than a Jimmy G. And especially if he gets back to the athlete he was in Tuscaloosa, which he isn't quite yet. And speaking with Tua's trainer regularly, I know what they're trying to do this offseason, and it's going to be more about last season was rehab into strength. Now they're going strength into skills. They got some guys they want to work with. I've seen some of the names on their list. So now we're going into let's talk about the Mike McDaniel offense, specifically how it relates to a quarterback. Okay. So, last year, we snapped the ball in pistol about 11.3% of our snaps, which is second most in the NFL. You guys ran it about 2.1%, 17 times in total, and the league average is about 2.2%. You look at RPO, how much RPO we ran last year, right? We were running RPO 18.7% of the time. Last year, you guys only ran it 4.4% of the time, and the league average was 9%. And play action, we're a big play action team on top of that, obviously. We led the league in play action, 35.4%. You guys were 15th with about 26.9%, and the league average is about 26.2%. So right around the league average. Can you talk about the type of offense we can expect to be brought over here? In terms of, I know people get caught up in the terms pro style and such like that. Like, is there what if you saw how Jimmy G was used? How can we expect Tua Tagovailoa to be used when we're talking about a guy who has at times, keyhole accuracy, better ball placement than Jimmy G, et cetera, a little bit more athletic than Jimmy G? How do you gauge how Tua is going to be using this offense, and what do you think the offense is going to look like?
I think the best thing for really all coaches, you'll have your thoughts and philosophies on how you want to do things, but it's being able to adapt to your personnel. So he can have all the ideas of traditionally how he's done things or how he would call plays if he were calling plays. I know Kyle was calling plays, but he'll have his ideas on the things that he wants to do. But, based on your personnel, you might have to change those things up a little bit. Again, talked about the usage of Deebo Samuel. I don't think any coach goes into a situation saying, hey, we want to have 400 rushing yards from our running back and 8 rushing touchdowns. No, but you adjust to the personnel that you have and figure out ways to use those guys to the best of your ability. And when it comes to how he might call plays for your quarterback, Tua, there's going to have to be some of that as well. All right, Tua excelled. I mean, not just with Alabama. I think that's what Miami was thinking. Like, well, what did he do well at Alabama? A lot of it is RPOs. Right, he did a terrific job with the RPOs and things like that. There might be some things where they get him out on the move a little bit more with boots and things like that. One thing about the 49ers, and again, it's hard to know what is his philosophy and what's Kyle's. Because if you look at, let's say, LaFleur over there in Green Bay, that's one of Kyle's guys, right? Or even Sean McVay, that's one of Kyle's guys.
Yep.
They ran I don't want to say they ran a different offense, but they did things different. And it might be because of personnel.
Their own wrinkles.
Nobody runs more 11 personnel than Sean McVay. But he comes from the same coaching tree. You know what I'm saying? So it could be, playing to their strengths. You look at play calling with Trey Lance as opposed to Jimmy Garoppolo. It's different. Obviously, they have some of the same staples, but it's all about playing to your personnel. So I'd expect them, if Tua does RPO well, which again, that was the strength of his at Alabama, and he does different things to where you get him out on the move or play action passes. He can turn his back to a defense, and if he does those things very well, then I expect him to continue to do those things and maybe just expand on it a little bit, and maybe add some more creativity to some of it. And I think that's a big part of some of these guys that come from Kyle's coaching tree.
And please add a run game, because we didn't have. I mean, we were leaning on Duke Johnson by the end of the year, right? Like, you guys last year, you drafted Trey Sermon and Elijah Mitchell in one draft, right? And you already had.
It's a mindset. That's a mindset. Like, if you listen to McDaniel talk about the run game and just the detail and emphasis they put on everyone doing their job, like, why the 49ers lose against the Rams? Man, guys lost a lot of one-on-one battles, even guys that you don't expect, like George Kittle in the run game. I'm just talking about just run blocking. But McDaniel is going to put a big emphasis on run blocking, everyone doing their job. And hey, if you do your job, this is how it works. And he's not going to let it slide. And he's going to get in there. His little ass is going to be cussing. Like, that's just how he talks. But he's going to go to the board and show you, like, okay, you missed this block, but this is why. This is why we put an emphasis on this. And look how this happens. And then look at this. I'm pretty sure they'll show some examples of their offense over in San Francisco and how it worked at times. Now, 49ers have a quarterback where teams just start like, we're not really scared of him. So we're going to put a lot of guys into the box. That definitely hurts the run game of the 49ers. If Tua could keep teams kind of playing more honest than trying to just take away the run, that'll open it up too. But he's definitely going to have the right run schemes, but they're going to have to, the team is going to have to buy in, and it's definitely going to be a mindset. And I think he's the guy that's definitely going to push that.
Oh, I got to ask you this question then, because this is another player a lot of Dolphin fans are asking about, because we had this conversation yesterday when we hired Mike McDaniel, just exactly about what you're talking about with the blocking, the willingness, and the dedication. How does a guy like Mike Gesicki fit in, who he is a glorified wide receiver. He only lined up in line about 5% of the time last year. He's not a very good blocker. He's not the best route runner. He, his strength is high pointing the ball and his athleticism for his size. I mean, how, people try to call him a top 5 tight end in the NFL, and I balk at it, because to be a top 5 tight end in the NFL, you have to be an all-around guy. You can't just be good at one thing, right? So how will a guy and Gesicki's about to be a free agent. And, if you look at, I know the NFL decides on what you are labeled as with a franchise tag, whether you're a receiver. I mean, all of his snaps came on the boundary and in the slot, so they could very well label him as a wide receiver, and that franchise tag is ridiculous. How would a guy like Gesicki, who's not a good blocker at all, fit in with Mike McDaniel? Is that a thing where Mike McDaniel just might let the talent walk because it's not what he needs?
I think every coaching staff, every coach, if you're a good coach, you're going to adjust to your personnel. So there might be ways for them to kind of scheme around that. I mean, look at George Kittle, right? Yeah. George Kittle typically is a terrific run blocker, and he's equally as good of a pass catcher. But for whatever reason, for whether it's what the 49ers needed or whatnot, I mean, there's times where George Kittle will get 2 targets in a game. Mm-hmm. I can tell you how many times, and I think he should get 8 targets a game, but they figured out ways to utilize him in the run blocking in different ways and things like that, to where sometimes he'd kind of be an afterthought. And I don't know how they're going to utilize Gesicki or what that's going to take away, but I would say whatever you think is a strength of his, they'll utilize him that way. I'm just not sure exactly how it would affect the rest of the play calling, because if he is too much of a liability, then that might make it kind of hard, or maybe they'll just bring him in certain situations.
Mm-hmm. So we kind of predominantly were built to be a power gap scheme in terms of our blocking, with guys like Solomon Kinley and, Robert Hunt and Dieter, and we drafted Liam Eichenberg last year, who's a disaster, and Austin Jackson's a disaster, but Austin's got the athletic profile to fit an outside zone scheme. Do you foresee that he's going to turn over this offensive line, and at least, I know you said playing to your personnel strength, but when the personnel isn't very good to begin with, when you got guys like Jesse Davis, and we got the most cap available to us in the NFL this offseason, do you think he's going to turn over the offensive line, and it's a good bet that we're going to go to an outside zone scheme?
I think he definitely will work towards that. I remember 2017 when Kyle Shanahan and those guys showed up, and I don't think it was an offensive line that was necessarily set up to do exactly the things that he wanted to do. That's something that they built over time. And even now, it's definitely not a power type run blocking scheme. It's more zone and moving and getting guys to move in unison. They made a trade for Laken Tomlinson. I think they gave up a 5th or 6th round pick. He's been terrific. He just went to the Pro Bowl. Man. A lot of the guys aren't the bigger, bulkier guys, but it's moving at the same pace. And again, that's just something that is going to happen over time. So I wouldn't necessarily focus too much on it in the sense of how it looks year one, but what are they building towards, as far as how it's going to look year 3.
Is Tomlinson's a free agent, right?
He currently is. Hopefully they resign him.
Because I know there people are talking about him with Miami right now.
I can see why. If I remember correctly, Miami had the worst offensive line in the NFL.
It's terrible. It's awful, bro. It's
not ideal.
Yeah, it's bad. We got T-Rex arms, Eichenberg with no feet. We got the worst technique in the world, but a good athletic profile in Austin Jackson. It's disaster. Robert Hunt, I think, is the only starter on an NFL team on that offensive line. So a problem the Dolphins have had the last couple of years is separation. We're not very good at manufacturing space. Even when we run trips bunch sets, we're just not very good at manufacturing space, getting guys in the open space. And yet we got a weapon on this team like Jalen Waddle right now. Now everyone sees how you guys have been using Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. Is separation and manufacturing space, is that a strength of the 49ers offense with their wide receivers, and is that something that McDaniel could bring over here?
They aren't really big separation guys. Obviously, IU can give it to you, and really Debo every blue moon, but they're not really separation guys. It's more a lot of scheme that allows more run after catch opportunities. So it's kind of getting guys to a certain landmark and being able to hit the guy and be very accurate with the throw. You know, you talked about Jimmy Garoppolo early on in ball placement, and it's really weird because Jimmy will do some really weird things, but he's one of the better tight window throwers in the NFL. You know, at least from what I've seen, I watch a lot of football. He'll throw into the smallest of areas and hit guys in stride to allow those big run after catch opportunities. So, you know, if that's going to be a part of Tua's game, they definitely they'll enhance that. Now, say you have guys that don't create a whole lot of separation. I don't think the 49ers have just those type of receivers. They're more better run after catch guys than just like pure separators. And I think the scheme really kind of opens up guys up. You know, if there is a Parker out there or a Jalen Waddle, I would expect to see guys really kind of get schemed open. But they weigh heavy on timing. So as long as the timing is right with those guys, I don't think it'd be an issue winning with those guys winning. Now, there are some teams that lean more on their guys winning one-on-one matchups. That didn't seem like a strength of the 49ers or something that they asked their guys to do a whole lot of.
Okay.
But I think that the scheme, as long as everybody buys into the scheme of what McDaniel is going to bring and the timing is right, I think you'll see it excel, regardless if guys are big separation guys or not.
Who are guys you could see him trying to pluck from the Niners staff? Like, I know some names right now are Wes Welker, your assistant offensive line coach, Zach Yenser, and I know the big one is John Embry. Do you think those three are possibilities that he could bring over from your guys' staff? And also, I know Dolphin fans want to hear it. What are your thoughts of Wes Welker and his tenure as a wide receiver coach for you guys?
First of all, I think John Embry, he was a tight end coach and assistant head coach.
Yeah.
I think he just went to the Chicago Bears.
Oh, he's with the Bears now?
Yeah. So he was assistant head coach, and then they asked him basically to take a pay cut. I think they were just going to kind of revert him back to just a pure tight end coach, and he ended up leaving. That's when they brought in Anthony Lynn. So there is no Embry. Now, as far as some of the other guys, Wes Welker, you'll probably hear mixed emotions from 49er fans about him, but I know there's only so much you can do as a coach. You know, there's a lot of it that has to, do with just your players and how much they buy into the things that you're teaching and the work that they put in. And I think Wes Welker, he can lead the horses to the water, but if they're not focusing on the things that he's telling them to, then you're not going to get the most out of them. I don't think that's a Welker thing. I think that's a player thing. So ultimately, his guys have bought in. It feels like everybody continues to kind of get better underneath him. I haven't seen anyone like take a step back. I think Debo, obviously, you see his production has gone up tremendously. Ayuk, he's done well. He was kind of in the doghouse for a little bit. I don't think that was Welker's doing. I think that was more Kyle Shanahan. But I think Welker, he'd be terrific. Now, to get a guy over like that, I think it would have to be a lot of times. Are you going to improve his like pay or give him a better title? So they're not willing to do that. He might just stay with Kyle Shanahan and this group. But as far as overall, I don't know. I don't know who they just take. Maybe the quarterback coach and make him offensive coordinator, and that is gosh, why can't I think of his name right now? He has a funny name, like a Italian name or something.
Oh,
Scangarello.
Yeah. Rich.
I don't even know. I don't know
Rich Scangarello or whatever.
I don't know if that's Italian or what that is. But anyways, So Rich Scangarello, maybe have him come over and him be the offensive coordinator. The 49ers lose their quarterback coach. But aside from that, I'm not sure.
And by the way, Embry didn't go to the Bears. He's interviewing for the Broncos job soon.
Oh, okay. Oh, and one thing, there are maybe some players that have been assistants for the 49ers. They did have Miles Austin as a receiver, assistant receiver coach.
Oh, okay.
They do have a guy, Matt Harper, right now, I know his little brother Josh, who he was in the NFL for a little bit, played at Fresno State. Matt, he's been a receiver coach for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now he's with the 49ers and he does a bunch of different things, but he's not a receiver coach. If he is looking for that, getting back to being a receiver coach like he was with Philly, then maybe that's somebody that can go to Miami.
As long as he doesn't bring Chris Forrester here, because I don't know if you know about the history with Chris Forrester here, but offensive lines weren't the only lines he was taking care of up here. So, uh, um, um, so okay, a big name that came out as soon as we made the hire was Vic Fangio. And, Vic Fangio was your defensive coordinator when you guys went to the Super Bowl under Harbaugh. What are your thoughts on Vic Fangio as a defensive coordinator?
Oh man, Fangio, that's a football guy, right? Like when you think of head coach, you think of Fangio, you don't really think of McDaniel. But obviously, McDaniel has worked really hard to get to this point in his life. I think he's going to do a terrific job. Fangio is just different, right? He's kind of a little bristled type guy. From what I remember with him being in the 49ers, and I think a lot of what he's done or did with Chicago, no, Denver. He was in Denver.
Yeah.
A lot of quarters. Did a lot of quarters, a lot of cover four, a lot of off coverage type stuff. And that's tough when if the Dolphins ran a different scheme. Now you got Byron Jones, you got Xavier Howard. It's like, man, you want to make those guys make their money, and they make their money, doing a lot of man type stuff. Fangio was with the 49ers a lot of years ago, so I'd be curious to see how he's kind of, changed up maybe some of his philosophies if he's doing different stuff. But crazy thing is, while he's doing a lot of cover 4 stuff, the rest of the league started doing a lot of single high, Seattle cover three. And now teams are starting to go back to more cover 4. So maybe it's just the right time, and it'll be a seamless transition for him to go there and kind of incorporate that in and figure out how he wants to utilize it. I think when you have corners like the Dolphins do, you got to utilize those guys, because like 49ers might run more cover 4, because maybe they don't have the guys to run that type of man coverage, right? So, when you have Byron Jones and Xavier Howard, you got to utilize them. I don't see them as just pure zone type guys. I know Xavier Howard has done well with it and can play it, but
Byron did a bit in Dallas, right? He played some zone in Dallas, right?
They ran more Seattle 3 with Chris Richard. They did that Seattle 3, like a lot of press type stuff at the line of scrimmage.
All right, so another a name that I wanted to add to this also. What Vic Fangio did with Justin Simmons has me salivating of what he can do with Javon Holland. I just want to put that out there.
I love Holland. Holland.
That man is a beast, man.
That man is coming out of Oregon. Very versatile. And I actually felt like his job at Oregon was hella difficult. Like they had him playing kind of like off in the nickel spot, but like having to guard guys in space, that are maybe a little more twitched up than him. Like I thought that was extremely difficult. But seeing him in more of a traditional safety type position, and him be able to work from there. He was a playmaker at Oregon. He was somebody I thought would do well, and it's good to see him do well. And Miami not trade him off like they did Minka Fitzpatrick.
You had to throw that in there. Right? Yeah. The thing that's impressed me the most was he found a new level of laying the lumber in the NFL. Like he was a good hitter in college. This guy is like a world rocker now at the NFL level. That's what I love about him. What were your thoughts on Harbaugh when he was your head coach? I know a lot of Niner fans are really torn on him, and I know, privately I was told some things, and if we got time, I can tell you when we're backstage exactly what I was told and by who. And you'd probably be blown away by who it was. But what were your thoughts on him as a head coach? I know Dolphin fans with the Stephen Ross connection, that was a name a lot of Dolphin fans were clamoring for. And I know him and Bulky had the fallout at the end there. What were your feelings of Harbaugh as a coach and how it all ended in San Francisco? And do you think he would have been a good option?
Harbaugh is different. I think that's the best way to put it. And, I've had guys that played under him, and I'd ask them, hey, man, what's up with Harbaugh, man? And it's always like he's a little weird. His tactics of motivation a little weird, right? But he's an excellent head coach, and he believes in his players. And one thing, even like I talked about Rex Ryan, right? One thing Rex Ryan, it didn't matter if you were at the top of the roster or at the bottom of the roster, you felt like, and I remember going into training camp, and he gave this speech, and it's just like, oh, I'm ready to run through a wall for Rex Ryan. I think Harbaugh has some of that in him. If you go back and watch like just press conferences with him, every one of his players is the best player in the NFL. Like he's like this guy is the Alex Smith, best football. Kaepernick, best football. Like his players are the best. And I think when you have a coach that backs you in that way and believes in you in that way, I think it gets the most out of you as opposed to some guys that go in and maybe even like Kyle Shanahan. I think this is something that I think Kyle might have to lean on his position guys a little bit more because he's just so cold. Like he's so cold. Like it's like you're never really good enough. You know, he's not really this guy that kind of praises players. Harbaugh is, and I think he does a really good job of getting the most out of all of his players. And they enjoy going to. I think they enjoy that part. Again, the Jet York, he might hate him. Balky, he might hate him. Everybody might hate him, but I think his players. I think he was a guy that a lot of the players got behind. Weird, but it, you know, three, you know, he was there for 4 years, never had a losing season, 3 straight NFC Championship appearances and a Super Bowl. So, you know,
yeah.
I think he like kicked out like Jet York, like kicked him and his dad out of a locker room. It's like it's for players, or you know, like just things like that. Like scheduled a practice when they were doing the ribbon cutting ceremony for Levi Stadium. You know, so like I think he's a hard guy to kind of get along with if you're not a player.
Yeah. So we know McDaniel's a run game and O-line expert of sorts. If you step back and you think about it, do you think he will maximize Tua? You know, because we're going into year 3, right? And you know, next year, Crocker, we got 2 first-round picks. All right. So like we're getting into the area of, I've always been a firm believer, not just quarterback, but any position. You give a guy you drafted 3 years and you start finding out what they truly are, whether they're durability concerns, bad habits, playing habits, etc. You start finding out what a player really is by the end of year 3. You know, it's really key. And we know during the coaching search, you know, Ross and Greer really stressed that they wanted someone that could work with Tua. And I think it was the month of November, right? If you go back to the month of November when Tua was like top 5 in all these major statistical passing categories. And, you know, we had no O-line, we had no run game. You know, other than Jalen Waddle, we had no weapons. We had a coach and a coaching staff that didn't believe in him. And our owner probably said, this is the first time in how long the media is talking positively about our quarterback. And look, he's doing that with all these negatives around him. Like, do you think McDaniel is a smart enough guy, and how you've seen him work with Jimmy and such, that if anyone's going to maximize Tua, it's going to be McDaniel?
Yeah, I can't answer that question with confidence. I will say this: if he had a big hand in Jimmy Garoppolo, I think the 49ers got the most out of Jimmy G. You know, he's a guy that's kind of limited with, you know, to areas that he could throw to the field. They definitely weren't a downfield pushing team. I think a lot of that had to do with Jimmy Garoppolo and his inability to just maybe feel comfortable throwing the ball downfield. I think they maximized Jimmy Garoppolo and what he is. And obviously, you know, they rolled that to 2 NFC Championship games in 3 years. And he's only healthy in 2 years, right? Both years, NFC Championship. I don't think anybody that watches the game would say Jimmy Garoppolo was the reason, but they were able to maximize his ability to get the most out of the team. So, you know, if there is anybody, whether I don't know who's responsible for Jimmy Garoppolo and all that, but you know, McDaniel, he's a part of that staff. And I definitely think that it'll help Tua for sure. Just continue to kind of put him in a position to where he can win if he is talented. Now, if he's not, then he'll just be, you know, Nick Mullins or something, or CJ Beathard. You know what I'm saying? But I think Tua, I mean, clearly he's a starting quarterback. At least that's what it looks like. I think he's heading in the right direction.
Yeah. I think he's shown he's at least a competent, you know, starting NFL quarterback. I've just given, I'm going to see if I've given the guys we got 655 people in the comment section. Guys, if you got a couple questions, we'll rifle them through for the next couple minutes with Crocker here. If you got questions about McDaniel or whatever, fire them off in the comments right now. Smash that like button. Someone said, I don't understand that question. I don't get that question. So, Christian re-asked that. How will Mike use Mike in the run game? I don't get that question. So if you got questions, guys, ask them, send them through right now. I Croc, what do you think about Dre Greenlaw if he becomes a free agent for us?
I like Dre Greenlaw. He's a guy, I live in Arkansas, and he's a Razorback. And people are really high on like the person that he is. It's weird because I hear some 49er fans be like, man, Greenlaw sucks. And I'm like, how? He's a good starting linebacker to me. He's definitely been someone that has, been able to make plays. He played different positions, whether it's inside or playing that Sam backer position. The 49ers they've had a few good linebackers between obviously Fred Warner, but there's Azeez Al-Shaair and there's Dre Greenlaw. So all three, I thought they played very well. D'Amico Ryans did a good job with those guys. Robert Saleh did a good job with those guys. Greenlaw is someone, I don't know how he'll be like kind of, on his own playing linebacker, but he was good for the 49ers. Made some plays. He's a guy that plays with a lot of intensity, maybe a little bit too much. And we saw a couple penalties in the Week 18 game against the Rams that could have potentially hurt the 49ers. But I think he's a solid football player. He's a starting linebacker. I'll say that. Yeah. He is a starting linebacker.
Yawa wants to know, is Crocker doing college breakdowns this year?
Yeah. I just said I'm about to start getting the Patreon going again. I got my YouTube and everything, but I haven't really put out a whole lot of college stuff, but I definitely will on the Patreon account.
Who is the most possible coach or player you are afraid McD will take with him?
With being a 49er fan, we're kind of spoiled a little bit because we've lost a lot of coaches, but it hasn't mattered. Like Kyle Shanahan has, for everything, Kyle, I don't know, he could be a little hard, but he's a terrific, he does a terrific job of picking coaches. And sometimes coaches guys have never heard of, like a Mike McDaniel or Matt LaFleur or Mike LaFleur or like all these other guys are, Robert Saleh. So I think most people would be like, oh man, don't want to lose this coach. But Kyle's been so good with kind of identifying, and I don't know if it's him developing guys, but at least identifying potential coaches that's not something that I would be worried about as a 49er fan.
Have you had a chance to watch Treylon Burks?
Yes.
You think he's perfect in a 49ers style offense?
I would say if you want a
like if you didn't have Debo, basically.
Yeah, like if you want, like, and again, it's hard to say who can and can't be Debo Samuel because he's kind of just special in that way. He's like this. He built like a running back at 5'11", like 220 pounds, but his acceleration is crazy. Like when he puts his foot in the ground and go vertical, guys just can't catch him or he breaks angles. It's really weird watching Debo and the way that he went. So he's unique. And I think a lot of people think you could just put anybody in that position. They could do what Debo does. I'm not necessarily sure that. I will say Treylon Burks has some of those type of traits. He has a special kind of breakaway speed. Like Debo, he's not just a pure, just super route running, separating type guy, but he wins. And I think one thing that he does better than Debo, man, his contested catch down the field is terrific. You could just say, I can throw the ball up to him. He can outrun guys once the ball is in his hands. And they did a lot of utilizing him in the backfield. They motioned him to the backfield, throw some screens to him there, find different ways, just get the ball in Treylon Burks' hands. And he's kind of a jumbo version of Debo. He's listed at 6'3", 230 pounds. And I think he's going to run extremely well. So Treylon Burks, that's somebody, if I'm Miami and seeing how the 49ers utilize Debo, I ain't saying he's going to be Debo, but if there's anybody in this class that has a chance to be utilized in that way, it's probably Treylon Burks.
Thank you for backing me up. I've been saying that for a couple of weeks with McDaniel. But I don't think he's going to be there at 29.
See, like Wandale Robinson, is that his name?
Yeah.
From Kentucky?
Yeah, from Kentucky.
Like he's smaller. So that's not to say that he can't do it, but like Debo, what makes him special is like he's doing that 5'11", 220 pounds.
Yeah,
and still bringing
he's built like a back.
Yeah, and still bringing that like game-breaking ability and be able to take on, the punishment of running inside, running outside, dish punishment. I mean, can't tell you how many times he's lowered the boom on guys. He ran into AJ Terrell, knocked his mouthpiece way out. I mean, he runs through guys' chests, ran through Ramsey. Ramsey came in and gave everything he had running into Debo. and he bounced off of Debo and hit the ground hard, and Debo just stood up and looked at him like, so Wan'Dale Robinson, like, I get it in the sense of a versatile guy, but if you are looking at like the utilization of Debo, that's difficult, and it would be more like a guy like
Treylon
Burks, who's built like that. He's built to take that on, big body, strong and fast, has that same type of acceleration as Debo Samuel.
Y'all are so blessed, man. Like, Debo is like top 10 receiver and most underrated receiver in the NFL. I don't care what anyone says to me.
Yeah.
McDaniel is known for bringing up running backs that are no names. So with our current running backs like Myles Gaskin, Salvon Ahmed, who you might
was
remember,
a 49er. Yeah.
Yep. In the roster, do you think he drafts one, or do you think he says, okay, there's some talent here I can work with?
They probably would draft one. They've done a decent job of drafting guys late. It was really weird and kind of off-brand of them to draft a running back in the 3rd round and trade up for him. That's what they did for Trey Sermon, and hopefully he learns from that, because clearly so far, I don't want to call him a bust, but they do not want him playing. And the 6th round guy, Elijah Mitchell, he's played. I think running back is a position where you could take late and the guys still have big time impact. You know, if you go back to RG3's rookie year, that a guy by the name of Alfred Morris, and Morris, man, he might have been undrafted or a really late round pick, like 6th or 7th round, and ran for 1,600 yards, led the NFL in rushing. So, you know, again, McDaniel's been with Shanahan going back to that. You know, he understands kind of the value of running backs and maybe things he would and wouldn't do. So I definitely see them addressing the running back position, at least bringing one guy in the draft. And they've also done a terrific job with undrafted guys, whether it's Breida, who y'all have seen, Jeff Wilson. They've gotten a lot out of Jeff Wilson. He led the 49ers in rushing last year, 2020 season. They had some injuries.
He's a free agent, right? He's a free agent now, right, too?
Should be. Yeah. Should be. Raheem Mostert, you know what they've done with Raheem Mostert. He was an undrafted guy, had been on like 7 teams, and definitely has excelled with the 49ers. He's a free agent, coming off an injury, but he should be healthy now. So there definitely are ways to go. If I'm Dolphins, I figure out a way to get Raheem Mostert for real. He's special.
So then that would answer your question. King Z305 says, who do you think will be the biggest free agent target that's not O-line? So I guess Raheem Mostert would be the one you would label as go target him, eh?
I don't know if it's going to be the biggest one that you go after, but that definitely would be a priority, because, I mean, he's different. He's really like, if Raheem Mostert was able to stay healthy, you would see like Chris Johnson type production.
Okay.
He's tough. Like, wow. Yeah, he's tough. He breaks every angle. Like, it's really incredible to watch, but you haven't really seen it on a full scope of what it could be, because just the getting banged up. I mean, he had 2 carries for like 20 yards to start this season, and he got hurt on the 2nd carry. You know what I'm saying? So, and he didn't play for the rest of the year. So that's kind of his issue. Once he gets going, there's always like this nagging injury. If he could play for a whole year, he's 1,500-yard rusher easily.
Garn wants to ask, why didn't Shanahan use Trey Sermon last season?
I don't know. You hear a lot of different things. People say he dances too much and had to learn how to run more in their scheme. But I don't know. Yeah, that's an interesting one. That I don't know. And even with them having running backs, they ran the hell out of Elijah Mitchell, and then utilized Debo Samuel a lot more in the run game. He had more carries the second half of the season than he did receptions.
A name that I've identified is going to be on my top 10 free agent video. Do you think Cordarrelle Patterson is an ideal fit? And if we're trying to do similar things to what you guys were doing and how you guys were utilizing your receivers?
Yeah, I think Cordarrelle Patterson is someone that has that versatility. We talked about, kind of the whole Debo Samuel thing, and he's someone that played primarily running back for Atlanta this past year. He had some big games, and whether it's a pass catcher or running back. So, yeah, he's definitely someone that I think it looks funny because he wears number 84.
Yeah, I know, it's ridiculous. Yeah,
so it's like you can't take it serious, but hopefully 84 is retired and maybe he has to get a 20s number or a 19 number, or, teens, and people take more notice of what he's doing. But he was probably the only guy that the Falcons could count on to be productive.
Yeah. So my last question here before I let you go, bro. You talked about, blocking and how important it is. Is it going to be imperative for wide receivers to be good blockers too?
100%. If you watch the 49ers receivers and how well they block consistently, like you'll find some missed blocks here and there, right, as receivers, but they take pride in blocking. And if you look at the big runs, and the 49ers have had a lot of them, the receivers are downfield 10 yards, 20 yards, 30 yards, 40 yards downfield blocking with all their might. So again, I talked about Mike McDaniel and putting an emphasis on springing runs and what all goes into that. I think the receivers are a big part of that.
I'm actually interested in this. This is the last question for you, so I swear. Well, I got two for you. One, what did the 49er defensive players think of Mike McDaniel?
I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I haven't heard anybody say anything.
That's a tough one. But here's a good one. What is your take on Trey Lance next season?
Oh man, excited. Trey Lance. So before the draft, he was someone who I have this tweet leading up to the draft. Once you start to gather all the information on him, I said that I would bet my life savings that out of all the quarterbacks in this class, Trey Lance is the most successful. And I said that before the draft happened. And then he just so happened to go to the 49ers. Now, my reasoning for that is, and I get it, a little raw in the sense of snaps and passes attempted, right? Mm-hmm. But he has this big time ability. And when you start to find out the person that he is, the man, right? Because there are a lot of guys, I've been in NFL locker rooms. There are guys that have this big time talent and they end up being bust, or you don't get the most out of them because they don't put the work ethic in, right? They don't have the right mindset to go above and beyond to figure out how they're going to be successful and do everything that they can. Well, everything that you hear about Trey Lance, he's that guy. Everything that you hear about him. And, you start hearing about his stories with his dad and how his dad was like, well, if you want to be good, then you got to wake me up to work out. So every day he would wake his dad up at 5 a.m., didn't miss a day, right, to work out. You learn about what he did at North Dakota State as a freshman. His freshman year, he was redshirting. He would watch everything that he was doing there, and then he'd watch NFL film just to kind of get a grasp of what it looked like and how it felt. That kind of film study and that mindset to do that. And then as a redshirt freshman, when they bring a Division I transfer into North Dakota State, and now it's like, hey, you got to compete with this guy. We're not giving you anything. And you know how politics is. A lot of times they're going to play the D1 guy that the guys that bounced back and brought back. He's the more veteran, seasoned guy as opposed to this freshman. And he beat him out. And not only beat him out, he went undefeated and, won every game, no matter how, whether it was in perfect situations and he threw the ball well and ran the ball well, or in a blizzard and frigid cold weather where he had to run the ball 30 times for 100-something yards and win a national title game. So when you start to figure out like the person he is and the ability, now it's just like, all right, are you going to put in the work to where you have to get better? And you see in preseason, you see the splash plays. Yeah. But then you see like random misses, like, damn, man, you threw the ball 5 yards over that guy's head. Or damn, you missed this, or you missed this read, right? Are you going to improve on those things? Then you see him against Arizona, and it was kind of up and down. Again, see some of the splash plays that ran him a lot. Did they not trust him yet to play on the center? And you want to see like, all right, okay, I see where he's at. Can he improve on that? And then he starts against the Houston Texans. And a lot of it is on under center and play actions. And he was much more efficient. He didn't have the wild misses. He didn't have the 5 yards over guys on the slants. He was extremely accurate over the middle. He had the second reaction plays. He started to show you why this is a guy that we believe in moving forward. And I think that gave me a lot of optimism, more so than just the person he is. But I knew he would put in the work. You saw it starting to come together. And again, we're talking about someone who didn't have any first team reps aside from the 2 games that he started. So now, you go into OTAs. You're the guy. You don't have to be in this weird dynamic with Jimmy Garoppolo on, hey, I'm the number 3 overall pick, but this is the guy that everybody follows. Where do I fit in? You don't got to worry about that. You're the guy. They're going to follow you. You're going to put in the work. You're going to do all that, and he's going to do it. I think he's going to be good. Now, are there going to be ups and downs? Of course.
Oh, yeah.
But he's shown the ability to have everything that they thought he was going to be. Now it's just, can you become consistent? And I think he's going to put in the work to do that.
Man, when I heard that draft story about when Kyle Shanahan called him up and brought up plays they had talked about months ago, and he remembered everything like verbatim and broke down the looks that they had gone over, and I was like, because I've been high on him since for a couple of years at North Dakota State. The guy's super uber talented. He can make any throw off platform. Like when you look at a guy, if you're looking for a Mahomes type of skill set, he has that. You know what I mean? Like he has
It's
all
different
the
though.
tools.
Yeah, he has all the tools, but he has very limited reps. So, like just throwing the ball, right? So he still has to continue to throw the ball to just get comfortable doing those things. And if you look at Patrick Mahomes, even if you look at him his rookie year, right? A lot of people forget about this, and you hear the stories that came out. But I watched that game, that last game of the season. It was kind of up and down, right? Him still trying to figure out what he can and can't get away with and things like that. But he still looked very comfortable throwing the ball. Like it was just very I mean, he threw so many times in the air raid offense at Texas Tech.
Yeah.
And I think for Trey Lance, coming from an offense that was so run scheme dependent, it's still getting comfortable throwing the ball. He can make all the throws. He could do all kinds of special things. But you still could see like a little bit of like, all right, this is still a little new to me. So as he continues to kind of get those reps and, throw for 300-400 times a season, I'd say by year 3, you should see even a different version of Trey Lance as you'll see year 2. I think year 2, he's going to be fine. But year 3, I think we'll see a huge jump.
All right, man. I appreciate you for doing this. Before we get out of here, though, I want you to go ahead, plug everything you got going on for the people. Plug the YouTube, Twitter, all that stuff you got going on, my friend.
Yeah, man. Follow me on Twitter at Eric_Crocker. And, I do different things. I got a Locked On 49ers. I've seen a couple 49er fans in here, but obviously mostly Dolphins. But Locked On NFL Draft. We've been doing mocks and things like that. So Locked On NFL Draft 5 days a week. Make sure you guys tune into that. I'm doing now a draft podcast with the New York Giants. So it's on their official YouTube channel, their official page, all that. Y'all see that up with myself, Paul, Tony Paulini, and John Schmilk. So a lot of different stuff, but man, follow me on Twitter and you should see everything that I'm doing at Eric_Crocker.
Let me ask you this. Who's your top quarterback in this class?
Oh, I don't know. I'm big on the upside because I feel like
Malik,
I don't care for somebody that's just like level, right? I want the big upside when it comes to quarterback. Like, what can you do? So I'd probably lean more towards Malik Willis.
Okay.
But it's all kind of not anybody I've taken like the top 15.
And your number one corner, is it Sauce?
I don't know. I haven't gotten through him enough. I do like Roger McCreary a lot. I know that. And I just watched Andrew Booth. I like Andrew Booth a lot as well.
Yeah, awesome. All right, man. Again, I appreciate you doing this. Guys, in terms of us, we're going to be back tomorrow night. We're going to continue deep diving in the hiring of Mike McDaniel, and we're going to start getting into players that make sense keeping. And hopefully we start seeing his staff coming together right now because, it was one thing to lose Dable to the Giants because I didn't really care. I wanted Mike McDaniel, but let's not lose Fangio to the Giants. The one thing that Flores got wrong here was he never hired a guy on the other side of the football with head coaching experience that he could lean on when times got tough and when he needed that support. And to see Mike McDaniel already having the foresight and already trying to get out ahead of that by going and getting a guy like Vic Fangio, you love to see it. And hopefully it comes to fruition and everything comes together. But until tomorrow, guys, thank you. We had over 700 people in the chat today. I appreciate each and every one of you spending some of your Monday with us. Until next time, guys, you already know what time it is. Fins up all day, every day, and we'll see y'all tomorrow.